In war, most battles are fought against a known enemy. Guns fire, bombs fall, soldiers die, but usually you know who to blame. But on the night of January 31st, 1918, in the icy waters off the Scottish coast, more than 100 British sailors died in what history bitterly calls a battle. The twist? There wasn't a single enemy anywhere nearby. No gunfire, no torpedo, no sight of a German fleet. And when it was all over, the British Royal Navy buried the truth under a thick blanket of silence. This is the haunting true story of the Battle of May Island, a battle that never should have happened, and one that, in every sense of the word, wasn't really a battle at all. Scene 1. The Grand Fleet prepares. It was the winter of 1918. World War I had dragged into its fourth brutal year. Europe was scarred by trenches, poison gas, and unimaginable loss. But far from the muddy fields of France, the British Royal Navy was preparing for something that seemed routine on paper. The plan was simple. A fleet of British warships would sail from Rosyth, a fortified port on Scotland's east coast, to Scapa Flow in the Orkney Islands, one of the Royal Navy's most critical strongholds. These weren't rookies on a training run. This was the Grand Fleet, the backbone of Britain's naval power. Included in the fleet were a line of 9 K-class submarines. Now, these subs weren't like what you're probably picturing. They weren't sleek, modern, diesel-powered machines. No, these things were monsters. Steel beasts almost 340 feet long, powered by steam engines. They had massive funnels for smoke, boiler rooms like small furnaces, and crews that operated them like they were managing floating locomotives. The K-class subs were fast, up to 24 knots on the surface, but that speed came with a price. They were clumsy, hard to stop, and terrifyingly bad at maneuvering in tight formations. They were, as one officer would later call them, accidents waiting to happen. Still, the plan was set. The operation was called Operation EC-1, a fleet movement under full blackout conditions. No running lights, no signals, no radio transmissions unless it was a dire emergency. It was stealth training. But the ocean is no place for blind trust. And that night, the sea was not in a forgiving mood. Scene 2. Into the darkness. The fleet began departing Rosyth in intervals, starting just after 6:30 p.m. At the head, the battle cruisers and dreadnoughts. Behind them, a line of destroyers and the 9 K-class submarines, lined up in a loose column. These subs were part of what was called the 13th Submarine Flotilla, led by HMS Fearless, a light cruiser. All of them were to proceed north through the Firth of Forth, past the Isle of May, and then head out into the deeper sea towards Scapa Flow. Now, if you've ever driven on a foggy night and lost sight of the road ahead, imagine that, but on an endless ocean, in the dead of winter, with no headlights, and 40,000-ton warships quietly cutting through the black. The ships were ordered to maintain position at fixed distances, using speed and timing alone. But there was something else working against them. That night, the fog rolled in early. The visibility dropped to almost nothing. The ships couldn't even see each other's wakes. And yet, the convoy pressed on, trusting that everything was going according to plan. But it wasn't. The seeds of disaster had already been planted, and they would sprout near a jagged little rock just offshore, a place called May Island. Scene 3. The first collision. As the fleet passed May Island around 8:30 p.m., trouble began. Submarines floated in the dark, several submarines behind K-17 and Fearless began to take evasive action. One of them, K-4, slowed to avoid a collision. She drifted slightly, just a few meters off her path. But that minor adjustment proved fatal. Behind her, K-6, moving at over 20 knots, came slicing through the darkness and rammed directly into K-4's midsection, shearing open the pressure hull. Sailors screamed as seawater flooded the compartments. Some were instantly crushed. Others were trapped in rapidly sinking chambers with no hope of escape. Seconds later, K-7, unaware of what just happened, occasionally visit the wrecks, paying silent tribute to the men lost in what may be the most tragic non-combat naval incident in British history. A memorial was finally erected in Anstruther, near the Firth of Forth. But even now, few outside the military or local historians have ever heard of the Battle of May Island. The phrase itself is a contradiction. There was no battle, no clash of fleets, just a sequence of deadly decisions made in darkness. The Royal Navy would go on to quietly phase out the K-class submarines, not just because of May Island, but because they were inherently flawed machines. Steam power and submarine warfare just didn't mix. The sailors who died that night, trapped in pressure chambers, thrown overboard into black freezing water, or crushed in collisions, never had a chance. They died not because of war, but because of fog, silence, and flawed engineering. In the end, the most dangerous thing that night wasn't an enemy torpedo. It wasn't a German U-boat. It was the sea itself. Blind, unforgiving, silent. The Battle of May Island is a stark reminder that sometimes the most devastating battles are the ones we never see coming. If you found this story compelling, haunting, or new, subscribe for more stories from history that are stranger than fiction. This was the Battle of May Island, and it wasn't a battle at all.